On today's episode of the Hop Nerd Podcast, we are joined by my friend and hop practitioner, Heather Haese. And this one is a bit unique because Heather came to the house and we recorded it here live and in person. How cool is that? So let's jump right on in. Welcome to another episode of the Hop Nerd Podcast. I am your host, Sam Goodman, the Hop Nerd LLC. Make sure you head over to the website, www.thehopnerd.com for fundamentals, learning teams, support, and so much more. Send us an email, thehopnerd@gmail.com, and be sure to follow along with us on all things social media at The Hop Nerd or at Sam Goodman. Welcome to today's episode. Hello, howdy, everybody. I'm pumped to be here. And before we even get into today's episode, you already know, if you listen to a little tickler right there at the beginning, that I'm joined by my near and dear friend, and an amazing friend of mine, Heather Haese, who happens to also be a hop practitioner working internal to a big organization, really leading them on this hop journey. And I think that's probably the first place to start, is to say that Heather is a hop leader and has a bunch of hop practitioners that work for her. And she's been boots on the ground, driving change internal to an organization. And her perspective is just absolutely invaluable. I mean, we mentioned this in the podcast, but you know, there's so many in this community, Heather being one of those, myself included, maybe not so much anymore. But me, I used to work internal to an organization, bringing about this hop journey, really operationalizing hop, embedding hop, right? So that perspective is really, really, really cool. So I've kind of called this the raw and the real. And Heather and I did what we normally do. Well, I guess what I normally do is we squirreled a bunch, and we just kind of went all over the place talking about the good, the bad, the ugly, the scary, the weird, all of that stuff that has to do with the human and organizational performance journey, all the great, good, weird, scary, ugly, bad, raw, real stuff that comes along with bringing hop to life. And I think you're really, 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 really going to enjoy this one. And so this one was a bit different because we did this at my house, which was kind of cool. Heather's, I guess Heather, I would call you a neighbor. Right? Heather lives in the same town as I do, right? Basically in the same. We live in the same metro area. That's probably the right way to say that, because when you're talking about Phoenix, living in the same area can still mean like 2 hours away, right? So Heather and I probably live maybe 15, 20 minutes from each other. So Heather came over to the house and we recorded this. So where I was going right at the beginning is, first things first, if you're listening to this podcast, go check it out on YouTube. We set up a couple cameras and it wasn't half bad. I have like one really good camera and one not so great camera. And so you see, it's a little like mismatched. I don't do enough of these in-person ones to justify buying like a bunch of fancy pants cameras and like toting them around. And when I do actually do these in person, I'm lucky to have my phone to do them on. Sometimes if it's a really good day, I have my little handy dandy recorder and the headsets that you'll see me and Heather using if you go over and check out the video. But just go to YouTube and search The Hop Nerd and then go find this video and give it a watch. And if you prefer to listen to it, that's cool and all. But if you enjoy this episode, do me a favor and share that video. It helps us an absolute ton. If not for anything else, it justifies me sitting here for like 3 hours this morning trying to figure out how the heck to put together this video with the separate audio that we recorded and trying to make them look, you know what I'm saying. So do me a favor, share that. If you're interested in a video episode, go check it out. I will tell you, because I don't do this camera crap with multiple people, multiple cameras, and a podcast all kind of happening at once, because that doesn't happen very much. I didn't think that the cameras would die, but at like a half an hour, 45 minutes, 60 minutes into this podcast, Heather's went and then mine went. They went like gone, like dead. So you'll get a really, really nice video episode for about the first 45 minutes. Then you'll have to stare at my ugly mug for about another 30, and then it just cuts to the rest of the podcast. But go check it out. It is uploaded at YouTube, on YouTube. Just search The Hop Nerd. And if you're not already subscribed, do me a favor, subscribe over there. I'm trying my best to put out a bunch of videos over there. And now when we put videos over there, it's different than what we share on LinkedIn a lot of times, because I have to shorten things down. Algorithm on LinkedIn. They do not like long format stuff. They're moving more towards vertical video and all that other kind of crap. So you might not even see half the stuff that we post over on LinkedIn because LinkedIn gets weird. But if you're subscribed on YouTube, you get all that stuff. And I try my best to make them at least look halfway decent and at least upload them in 4K high dev type stuff. So if you want to watch them on your TV, if you're anything like me, I get bored of Netflix and other stuff and I end up throwing up podcasts and different like house tours. House tours have been the thing that I'm into lately. We've been doing some work around the house here as much as we can when I'm home, to just kind of like spruce stuff up a little bit, just normal kind of handyman home kind of stuff. We're working on some stuff in the backyard as the summer starts to cool down here in Phoenix a little bit, so you can do that without certain death, or at least melting your face off out there. And so I guess that's what's drawn me to the home tours. So I've been watching home tours a lot, lots of podcasts, lots of comedy stuff. But so again, if you're anything like me and you want to just like cast that to your TV, watch that on YouTube on your TV, they are in high def, and I think you'll enjoy them. So go over and give that a shot. I would encourage you to finish out this episode, or I don't know, heck, just go over there, just go watch the video and share it. Again, if you like this, if you love this, if you got to have more of us, more of this, maybe more of us, me and Heather, the best way that you can show your love and support of what we've got going on here, if you want to see us keep doing this, is just to share it, really, to like it, to share it, to interact with it, tell your friends about it. If you hate it, tell your enemies about it, but let people know. Again, it helps us more than you will ever know. And if you need a hand on your hop journey, my fall, as you know, is starting to compress. Get in touch, thehopnerd@gmail.com. And we have hop and operational learning happening in Las Vegas. Back to real deal practitioners that have done this, working internal to organizations, not born like out of the womb consultants, like we were talking about with Heather. Steven Scott, we're putting on hop and operational learning in Las Vegas on October 8th and 9th. Seats are limited. It's going to be a nice, it's going to be a good sized group, but it's going to be still kept very intimate, and it's going to be fun. It's just 6 minutes from the airport, 2 days of a workshop. And we're going to surely have plenty of hanging out in between, and really, 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 really fun and interesting conversations happening in between. I might even bring some cameras and the podcast stuff. Who knows? And we'll drag you on the podcast if you come there. I've been kind of like planning in the back. It's not going to be like a bazillion people, right? It's not going to be like that. Hold on, cold brew break. I got to breathe. I'm getting too pumped about today and hop and operational learning in Las Vegas and everything else that we've got going on, and the 3 other things I need to tell you about that's really cool. I'm sorry, but I'm just stinking pumped, and I'm jazzed up. I'm jazzed up on cold brew, but I've been tinkering in the background, like just to make it like unique and fun. And so I think you're in for a treat when you come hang out at Hop and Operational Learning in Las Vegas. It's not going to be your normal run of the mill kind of workshop. We're going to have some fun stuff happening. And as I said, I think the stuff that happens in the margins of these get-togethers, the conversations that happen in between PowerPoints are some of the most valuable. They're way more valuable than the PowerPoints, right? And on top of that, you're not just there hanging out with me and Steve. You get to come hang out with many of your industry peers, like folks that are on this journey or learning more about getting started on this journey, varying levels of maturity, different shapes, sizes, companies, industries. It's going to be a ton of fun. The other couple things that I need to let you know about before I just cut over into this fun conversation with Heather Haese is make sure you check out Starting Points, the card deck. So the physical card decks, you can go to startingpointcards.com. We have funky meeting starters, and they're in a tarot deck in a nice little metal tin. I just got my copies of them today. They're flipping awesome. You should check those out. We have all the original card decks over there too. The original card decks, we're going to keep them in that normal kind of playing card size as well, but we're also going to release those in that tarot card size with that metal box. So again, they're just cool. I got my hands on them. They're nice. You're going to like them. You're going to love them. You're going to have more of them. And then check out the basics of hop and learning teams that we offer with our first ever kind of online course. You can go to thehopnerd.com and just click on online learning at the top. And there you go. You can take the course. If you have folks in your organization that are new to hop, you need to give them the basics. It's a really, really, really great way to do that. On demand, click through as you go. Nice video presentations and downloads and stuff like that. And you get a free copy of 10 Ideas to Make Safety Suck Less. A nice little downloadable copy of that, little ebook copy of that as well. And if you haven't read that book, make sure you find that on Amazon. Okay, with all that out of the way, sorry. We've just got a lot happening. If you can't tell, we're working on the app too. You know that we launched startingpoints.app, the web-based app, a few weeks back as kind of our first push of getting the Starting Points cards appified. And what you don't see, and I've mentioned this a couple times, is we're working feverishly in the background. I say we, it's me. Basically not understanding what app developers do and saying, can you make that black? Can you make that font bigger? Can you add, it's that, right? That's what I mean by we. The pros are working on helping me come up with a nice downloadable app that we're going to launch in the Google Play Store and in the Apple Store very, 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 very soon. It is like right around the corner. So be sure to check that out. If you want to go ahead and get started now, you can go over to startingpoints.app. As we start to launch the other app, the downloadable version of that, we're going to keep both. So there's going to be two options there for you. If you're more interested in a web-based something, you can just go to it from any browser with no download. And again, optimized for a mobile browser, you can still do that. Or you can go onto that website and download the app once it becomes available, or just search for it in the App Store. So there we go. Okay, a lot happening. Excited to share it with you. We're doing a lot of great work out there. We're putting a dent in the world, a nice positive dent in the world. And thank you for all of your love and support. Without you, none of this would be possible. And, I've got to give you that super duper sincere thank you, and a huge thank you to Heather for taking time out of her Sunday to come and hang out with me for about 3 hours, about an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours of it we recorded. And this is it. So I think you're going to like it. I think you're going to love it. And I think that you're going to find that it's packed full of a ton of real deal, raw and real deal information about the hop journey overall, and a lot of conversation about learning teams and in particular limitations and maybe missteps at places where we get it wrong a lot with learning teams. So enjoy, and make sure you give Heather a follow over on LinkedIn. She is doing just some awesome stuff. I'm not coming back. We're just going to jump right into this thing and we'll fade it right on out. Have a great rest of your week. Until the next one, enjoy this amazing conversation with the awesome Heather Haese, coming to you live from my kitchen in Litchfield Park, Arizona.
That's scary.
So we'll just jump right in, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
If I remember right, when we were talking about this is your first podcast
it's my
ever?
Very first one.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I don't want to make any promises till we get to the end. That would probably be not good. You're going to get to the end of this because that was horrible. Why did you make me do this? But to get started, why don't you tell everybody out there who you are, what you do, all that kind of sort of stuff. A little bit of history, background.
I can absolutely try. So my name is Heather Haese, and I've been in the world of human and organizational performance for about a little over 5 years now. And I like to tell the story of how I got there because I fell into it completely. I had no intention of being here, but here I am. So I actually started in the corporate security world, so physical security. Which was kind of a natural fit for me. Come from a law enforcement family, so focused a lot on physical security, emergency response, some of the projects and security equipment, programming of security equipment, and I loved that world. I felt like we got to catch bad guys and looking out for things. And I started getting into the space of working on some special projects around end of life for a lot of our security equipment. And in that, it exposed me to a lot of different people, a lot of different things, and just seeing kind of some of the weaknesses that exist, not saying in the security space, but more in the organizational space. And I decided to make a change, and I fell into the world of human performance at the time, and then quickly moved over to human and organizational performance. And stumbled, fell, struggled there for a bit, and then fell completely in love. And so that's how I ended up here. And I have been in the electric utility space the entire time, which has been an amazing space to learn. But yeah, I just absolutely fell in love, and I saw the impact that HOP had on folks, and our ability to learn in a different way has been magical, I would say, if I can use that word. Yeah. So that's how I ended up here, and we met along the way, and so thankful for that as well.
Yeah. We've I think that's a good point to probably insert here, is that This isn't random.
No, it's not random.
Right. So Heather and I are pretty good friends. I think we're pretty stinking great friends.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I didn't just end up at your house today.
Just randomly in my house, right, talking about hop. I tend to do that, right? We're on 330-ish episodes. I think this is right around 330. I'm lying. I'm sure it's probably 329, but it's right there, right?
I'll believe you.
So when you get to that level of episodes, when I first started a podcast, I remember the panic. And the panic wasn't this. It wasn't like, how do you do it? And my God, like, it was, what do you do when you run out of stuff to talk about? Mm-hmm. And then some folks that were kind of like pointing me in that direction, they're like, don't worry, you'll never have anything to talk about. You'll never run out of stuff to talk about. But I don't know. At 330, I had to go get a random person off the street, and here
Found
we go.
me.
I just pick people off the street and like, let's talk about human and organizational performance. They look at me like I have an arm growing out of my head, and then we, it always makes for a good time.
Yep, you prepped me before I got here, so it's all good.
Yeah, I think that was probably the extent of the prep, though, right? Was don't worry, you'll do fine.
I was like, I trust you. Over time, you've gained my trust, so that's why I'm here. We'll see.
We'll see how it goes. No, you're coming at it from a very, very interesting perspective because I think it's something that's a bit different, right? And many of the folks that I tend to spend time with, I think of Steve Scott doing a workshop in Vegas with Steve coming up, with other folks in this world that I tend to spend time with that are practitioners. We've been there, like we're in it. We've done it, right? And I guess what I'm saying is that we weren't born like natural, just out of the womb consultants, right? And there's probably a bunch of those out there, and they're probably great. But you bring such a unique perspective to the conversation because you've not just done it, but you're living in it right now in an organization that I would probably call, and jump in if I'm wrong, but I would say mid-level maturity with Hop. Done a whole bunch of great stuff, made a whole bunch of change. Probably not at like the real seasoned vet level of an organization with it yet. What's that journey been like? I think that's always interesting for folks to hear, especially those folks that are on kind of the fence of going, I don't know, we're really rooted in this, I don't know. What's that like?
Hard. Hard is going to be my first answer.
There are no easy answers. If someone's telling you that there are easy answers, they're just trying to get you to send them a check.
Absolutely. No, it's been hard, but again, going back to the kind of falling into this, I didn't understand what it was that I was falling into. And through conversations started to discover something that you and I talk about a lot is the risk secrecy piece, right? I heard stories where people were uncomfortable sharing information, and not because they're bad people, not because it's a bad organization, but just historically the way that we've approached things, and how much information was really out there ready to be told. And started hearing those stories, and I'm like, this is great. This is going to be awesome. Like, we're going to change the world. We're going to change it overnight, and it's going to be great. No, we're not going to change it overnight, but that's what makes it good, right? And so there's been, in anyone that I talk to about this Hop stuff, there's
sorry, I'm trying to help you. For
there's
anybody hearing that, I'm not abusing the dog shit. I'm going to put her on the table, so if you're watching a video, you can see her.
She's joining in. There's a resistance even still, because people don't like to believe that maybe we've gotten it wrong. Because we're challenging the way that people think and have thought their entire life. We're challenging the way people learn. We're challenging the way that we get answers. And so there is a resistance to that.
Sure.
But through that resistance, you have those light bulb moments where you see that you connect with someone and, oh my goodness, it's so worth it. Or you uncover information and it's just, I think that anyone that wants to be in the world of Hop has to thrive on passion, pure passion, because it's going to be frustrating. It's going to be difficult. I always recommend having folks that you can call crying, but then there's those moments where, again, you uncover something new or you connect to someone and it's like, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm doing this. And so we've had all of it through my time in the Hop world. We've had all of it, right? Frustrations, plenty of shed tears, but so many moments where it made a difference, and it's just been incredible.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. I mean, I think about that, a couple things that you said there. A lesson that I learned really, really early on, because I like when things are a bit provocative, and especially when we're challenging things. I kind of operate under this general belief that everything in our world, basically, at least that we have anything to do with it, has been shaped by human hands. And we can do or undo anything that has been done, right? We can create out of the dirt, and we can tear down anything that we've erected out of the dirt. There's nothing that is just sacred that we shouldn't drag out onto the table and assess and think about what that looks like. For me, that's the hope piece of that, right? Is that there's nothing is set in stone. Nothing is set in stone. We can change, make, redo, rebuild, tear down, dynamite, grenade, whatever we want to. But with that, especially early on, as I was kind of in this space, to have that conversation that was a bit more pointed was kind of the go-to, and I think it is for a lot of practitioners. And I think that's probably healthy a little bit as an organization to have that bit of kind of tongue-in-cheek conversation when we first start, where we're like, there goes the dog. She just wants to be on the podcast. Lily, come here.
Come back and be on the podcast then. Come here.
She's protecting us from intruders. But I don't know. I think that's a bit healthy, at least maybe early on in the journey when we're going, oh, that was horrible. I can't believe it. Yeah. And we kind of poke fun of stuff. And yeah, it's fun. It's all good and fun. But I remember the lesson that I learned early on was that, that in having these conversations with folks, that, it's not that everything that we did was bad. And that was never the intent of those conversations. It was more of a pressure relief valve, I think, for many of us in the organizations.
Absolutely.
But we're going, this wasn't that bad. Well, this was done with the best of intent. And then you kind of get to that point where you go, oh, wait a second, we're not going to really change the world. We're not really going to put a dent in what we're trying to put a dent in if we just keep talking about the bad. In fact, I don't think we need to talk about it all that much at all. I mean, we recognize where we've been. Let's talk about where we're going. And when we get there, we start really down this road of, let's talk about what we can do. Let's talk about what we can actually make happen right now. Let's talk about the good and the good that we need to do next, rather than maybe the not so great that we've kind of lived in the past. And that's always kind of a tipping point, at least what I've seen. And then what you mentioned, that frustration and the suck, you have to really, excuse my overused term here, but embrace the suck of it all. Or probably even more overused, you have to embrace the journey, right? Yes. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And I will tell you, that journey is shit.
I would agree.
A lot of the way along, right? It is not all fun. But I think... I don't think the lows are ever that low. You have moments, but the highs definitely outweigh the lows when it comes to that journey. For sure, you have those opportunities where things get a little bit sideways. You think should be moving forward, but now you're 3 steps back, and you have yourself locked in the office, hitting your head against the wall. You're like, I've told them this 14 times. Oh my God! All right, we all deal with that. Yes. We all deal with that in our organizations, where it's we've mapped this out perfectly. We had this conversation, and then they said yes, and went and did the exact opposite of what we talked about. Constantly. But I think what makes up for all of that is exactly what you just said. That kind of click moment.
Best.
Where someone's like, oh my God, I know what you're saying. Holy crap, I can do this. This is useful to me. I can see the difference that this will make. And then beyond that, seeing that lived reality improve throughout the organization at all levels of the organization is breathtaking. I mean, I don't know how to describe it, because you spend time with those nearest to the work, and they're going, my God, things are so much better. Like I can speak up, and we can have conversations that we could never have before. And because of that, things around us are improving. My work is easier. We're more efficient, and on and on and on and on. I've heard that several times in various organizations where it's, I couldn't imagine wanting my kids to work here when we first started this, but I would invite them and my neighbor's kids to come work here now. This is kind of stinking cool. And even at the leadership levels, right, where they go, my God, I've never had this much information before. And not only do I have the information, but now I can make better operational decisions because I have real and realistic information. I'm not having to lock myself in some posh conference room somewhere with my leadership team and us have to guess on what to do next. We have tapped into at least a healthy dose of operational reality. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So with that said, what is something that has been probably the most frustrating for you with the journey? What's if there's a story, if there's something, you can speak in general terms.
Of course.
We don't want to out anybody here, right?
I would never.
Because we all get it wrong.
Yes, we absolutely do. I talk about giving grace all the time.
That's the best way to put it. Yeah.
Give so much grace, and there is no perfect in hop. None of us even have it 100% figured out. It's all trial and error. But I think something that's been at the surface, and it's not so much of story, just kind of a overarching circumstance that's been incredibly frustrating to me because, as you said, the journey I've been on, we've gotten to a point, and if any of them hear this, sorry, because I always refer to them as zygotes. I say we're in the zygote phase, like we're in the infancy.
Yep.
But really, we have been on this journey for several years, and there's so many people doing really good work. But the thing that's frustrating me the most, like in the world of hop right now, is we try to teach leaders, all levels of leadership, how much more information they're going to receive.
Yeah.
Right? You'll get more information, and they start to see that. And we tell frontline folks, the people in the field, the people actually doing the work that, we want your ideas. We know that you're the experts. We know that you have ways to make improvements. But what I'm finding a lack of in any industry, honestly, with the conversations I've been having, is a pathway to kind of connect those dots. So employees coming forward with ideas, with ways to make it better.
Yeah.
And even if they go to their leadership doesn't know where to go.
Right.
They don't know how to make those improvements.
Yeah.
It's usually not as easy as, hey, I need a new hammer and let's go buy you the new hammer. It's usually processes have to change, safety rules have to change, equipment has to change, it has to get approved by committees, by boards, by this.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. And that's been incredibly difficult and frustrating because I'm starting to see employees say, hey, we have this problem. I also know how to make it better. I did all this research. I know the answer.
Yeah.
I don't know where to go with it.
Yeah.
And I don't know where to go with it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of also a fulfilling part of this, being that conduit and hunting down those opportunities.
Yeah.
But that has been so difficult because I'm seeing folks try to do this, right? They're trying, they're leaning in. We're seeing the benefit, but it's kind of going nowhere because I don't know that we've thought about that piece of it all the way yet.
Right. Yeah. I think we're figuring it out, right? I think we're figuring it out. And I think it probably leads to another question. There's a lot to unpack there. I think that's a really interesting conversation. What I tend to see too, and I'll get your take on this, just from your personal experience, I see that maybe we gain all this information, and then as we mature, we get better at maybe sorting and prioritizing that information. Right? And just general terms here, we'll tend to start to sort stuff into critical risk. Under controlled critical risk kind of falls first in the fix it bucket or improve it bucket, right? And that's some of this conversation, not to squirrel too much, is a lot of the issues that we uncover, they're not rapid quick fixes, or they're not big grand rapid fixes where it's like we have this gaping hole that eats people. Our organizations are pretty good at that already. If something's eating people, we're pretty good at making it not eat people. We do that pretty fast.
Absolutely.
It's those smaller issues, those smaller problems that might not be so small on their own, but kind of turn into a cluster as they kind of come together.
They do.
But there might not be a direct kind of obvious fix, right? There's improvements. And many of those things, I would probably argue that that's probably about all we can do with those things. We can't eliminate them. We can't just fix it. There are things that we have to improve or improve around, right, to kind of create overall betterment in the organization, overall improvement. But I tend to see that where the problem starts to come in with what you're mentioning is that when we get to the output side of that, and we've come out of maybe a learning team something or some other operational learning tool, and we come out of that, we've got these prioritized ideas, and they're stinking good. But there might not just be like, oh, just Bob, go fix that. It might not be those type of things. It requires some effort. It might require multiple actions. As you said, this has to go to that group. and they need to rewrite this, and then it has to go over to this group to get approved, and then we need to change something physical in the plant or in the system over here, and then we have to communicate that through this group, and on and on, our normal kind of corporate change kind of stuff or improvement kind of stuff. I'm curious as to how much our action tracking systems are failing us, more so than maybe the input side of that process. Right, because we go through the learning team process, we have actionable outputs, they're prioritized, we kick those over to there, we'll usually generate some sort of actions out of there, and then they either die in that process or they get closed out unfulfilled.
Yes, passion point.
Yeah, so that's where I start to get curious about how well our action tracking and action completion systems, how well that's actually working for us. I share that with companies all the time. It's like, I know that you have an action tracking something because everybody has an action tracking something. In fact, I bet that you have a multi-million-dollar action tracking something, and that's fine. I think that's probably a necessary step of the process. We're busy and we've got a lot of shit going on. Like we have to keep track of things because I forget. I have 20 actions assigned to me at any given time.
Absolutely.
And if I don't have a list and if I don't know when those things need to be done, they're probably not going to happen.
Not at all.
But I always encourage organizations to really put some serious thought into if that's working well, how that system's working, because it tends to be a sticking point, at least a friction point in making things happen. And I think you said something there too that I find to be really interesting, is that these things, we cannot just will things into existence in our organizations, no matter how much we wish that we could. When we think about some of these things, we have to push on them. And you almost need somebody that's like the designated pusher.
Absolutely.
to push on these things, and not just push. We've got to get this live. We've got to get this there. We've got to get this part of the process fixed, and this thing that goes with that thing done, and this thing that goes with that and that done. Not only making sure that those are done, but then thinking about how we examine for effectiveness and not get so rigid in those ideas that we don't micro-experiment and tweak.
Yeah.
Along the way, I always have to share this, but just because something comes out of a learning team does not mean that it's gold. It's just not how it works. Right? You will end up with some really stinking great ideas, and a lot of them are going to be real and realistic, and they're going to work well. But even the best ideas that come out of learning teams need to be proofed out. You have to check for effectiveness. You have to examine for unintended side effects. And if it's going to be worth what you're doing at all, you're probably going to have to tweak and tune and micro-experiment and tweak and tune and micro-experiment several times before you ever get that into a place of it being maybe all that doable, all that effective, right? At least that's what we'd probably hope that it would be.
I feel like that can be daunting though, right? Like, we're going to go into this learning team, we're going to learn a bunch of information, we're going to come out with some proposed solutions that we don't even know are going to work, we're going to test them, we're going to implement, we're going to retry, we're going to look for effectiveness. It can be daunting, but if you get folks that are dedicated to that, I think it can be incredibly powerful.
I think some of what we tend to do, because I don't want to scare people too much with this.
No, sorry.
A lot of what you get out of learning teams are elegant in their simplicity. I see learning teams all the time generating actions that sound like, if you moved that thing 3 foot that way, I don't have to deal with this problem anymore. Like, it's gone. You find those regularly.
Constantly.
And I mean, maybe sounds a bit old school, but chase down your quick fixes. Like when you have rapid improvement opportunities, quick fix type of stuff, when you do have hey, I need this other hammer, and you give me this stupid one that doesn't work, fix it. And those are fast, right? They should be fast. If they're not fast, that begs a bigger question as to why we can't buy a hammer. Right? That's probably a much deeper conversation.
It's a different conversation for a different day.
But to that point, you will uncover these things where there's just not. We have to acknowledge that in our work worlds, that I don't know that there are any easy answers. I don't think so. There aren't any easy answers left, at the very least. And if you think anything like I do, I think the whole easy answer thing was just a story that we told ourselves. Well, that's easy. It's just, I don't think they've ever existed. Our companies almost exclusively deal in the suck. As we're talking. We deal in hard answers. Right? And they're hard because some of those answers aren't even real answers. It's just like, I don't know what we do with this. But what we do know is that we come out of this learning team and there's some ideas on how we can improve around it. How do we make sure that we get those done? I think that action phase is is probably where most of us get stuck, as we were kind of saying with how we're tracking that. Problems. So this is where I was going. Problems with this is, I think that number one, we put actions on the wrong people. Yeah. A lot of times, right? We either give them to the folks that are our doers in our organizations that are doing, and and what I mean by doers are our rock stars. Because they GSD, we know we throw that to Heather. Heather's going to get it done. I don't have to worry about it. Heather's got it. But wait a second, we threw Heather the last 100 things. When does Heather sleep?
Never.
like that conversation, right? I think there's some of that, or just action mismatch with authority, resources, time. We'd see that quite regularly too, where anyone in the corporate world has got the action where you're sitting there scratching your head on Friday because someone sent it to you on Friday evening, so they could click send and run away so you can call them. Right, and you're going, oh, what does that even mean? I don't know what a 1 Alpha Charlie bobulator is. What is that? What am I supposed to do with this? That we put them to the wrong people, time, resources, or just understanding of what it is. And so that could be because of title or anything else. Right, we just send it somewhere. So yeah, it dies there. It absolutely it dies when we do that. I think the other thing that I was going to say, though, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we take the learning team, and the learning team members should have some ownership of what that looks like, because it's their ideas. And of course, and they want it usually. These are our ideas. We don't want to send it over to stupid safety people. They're going to screw this thing all up, right? But sometimes we almost put too much on them, I think, as well. We forget that they have some responsibility other than just being learning team members, right? Or same thing with the facilitator. We'll take and we'll put on the facilitator, okay, now you just facilitated this learning team, Heather. It took up at least 2 days of your time. By the time you do those sessions, you have that bit of soak time. By the time you've planned and researched beforehand, and you're compiling and distilling down and trying to pull this, because we want a 14-page PowerPoint with this too for everyone that you do. We need that. But then on top of that, when you get done, can you generate those 14 actions for me? I know you've got a learning team starting today, but can you come in early and do those for me before you do that learning team? And you see quickly how that spirals out of control to where if you just dump all of that on your facilitator, and then beyond that, we'll usually dump on the facilitator, and then you chase down the actions and make sure they get done too, Heather. Just please. Right? So you're developing this kind of perfect storm of single point of failure, right? Overwhelming them with stuff, where I think, I don't want to call it an easy answer, but it is far more efficient into the process. It makes it far easier to get some of this stuff done. The leader, the owner of whoever that learning team is, they should be part of generating these actions, or at least tasking them out to someone else, saying, hey, Heather's facilitating learning team. She's already off to do the next one. And then she's teaching a hop course that evening too. Here's what they come up with. We've agreed on these actions. Put these in for me. Send that to somebody that maybe not obsessed with facilitating the next learning team. And then as that owner, they're usually of at least a bit more authority in the organization. They usually have resources. They usually have all of that stuff. They're a leader in some capacity. They should be driving those actions. It shouldn't just fall to the facilitator or the learning team to just be chasing. Because we're talking about usually some type of specialist or consultant and folks that are nearest to the work. If I call folks up, I get that's just them being a hot person. Now we'll do it. Don't worry, but don't do it. Don't worry about it. Right? If I get the call from the vice president that sponsored the learning team, it tends to help drive some of that action. So just a couple thoughts just that have been bouncing around in my skull lately as I see people kind of they're doing them, but they're kind of struggling with the output side.
The follow through. Yeah. And again, like I said, with everything that we do is trial and error. And so I've been toying with learning teams, right? What works, what doesn't work. Yeah. And I've definitely been finding that having the owner of that learning team, the sponsor, whatever you're going to call them, it makes a lot of sense to have that be upper level management. So I think there was a thought for a while to have, a leader, a frontline leader be that, because they understand the work a little bit better than maybe a VP. They're connected with the folks. They have the relationships. But those folks have so much on their plate.
Too much.
Too much on their plate. And they also might still not be the people that can actually create change, get that buy-in, get the funding, get the approvals.
Yeah.
And so we've found that by going a little bit further up in an organization to those mid-level to higher level leadership levels, those folks do have that ability.
Yeah.
And it's so beneficial for them to get the visibility of what we're talking about.
Right.
The other thing, and this might be a hot take, do less. I think that we convince people that we need to learn all the time, which is true, which is absolutely true. But I think people almost fall for like a fake promise, or they build something up false in their head. And they're like, we have to go do 200 learning teams in the next month. And we got to enter those actions. Now we have 1,000 actions in there.
Right.
It is not possible that those things are going to get done. Even if they are, go buy a hammer. If you have 1,000 actions to go buy a hammer that's due in the next 2 months, it's not happening.
No.
And getting people to realize that, what is that saying, like quality over quantity? Do the learning team, be in the learning team, learn all you can, follow through on those actions, keep that communication chain going with the participants of that learning team, and then move on to the next one. There is not value in doing hundreds of learning teams all at once and then following through with none of the solutions.
No, I think we fall into that trap that we always call learning team crazy, right? Where, we do it once and we're like, crap, that was good. And then we do it again. We're like, oh my God, that was even better. Holy crap.
Yes.
It seems like 3 is the magic number for most of our organizations. For just about it, we do it 3 times. There's a few things that happen. First, there has to be an 80-page procedure because we did it 3 times and this is getting out of control. Oh my God.
Yeah. We complicate it for ourselves. It's awesome.
Yeah. Oh my God, this is getting out of control. We need a 14-page form. And don't worry about it. Just copy the incident investigation form and make it into the learning team form.
No.
Something like that. And then we'll add on this big pack of paper that has approvals to do learning teams, which then overcomplicates it in a lot of ways, as we said. But I think the more dangerous part is that we go learning team crazy. We think that everything is deserving of a learning team. And just by doing that, it just becomes another something that we got to go do. And then quality just obviously takes a nosedive around those things. I think that you have to pre-sort a bit. You should be asking those questions. For us, something that I do personally is we do learning explorations where they're based on the general principles of HOP and operational learning. But they're kind of fast hit and run kind of things where we look for those things where we can kind of have quick fixes or quick improvements that we can co-create with those instead of maybe a normal observation process. We're just going out and learning and, oh, great, there's a problem. Let's improve that. And then we look for starting points for deeper learning teams, more complex issues, complication, and on, where we just go, oh, wow, that sounds really interesting. We should probably dig deeper into that. It gives us kind of that middle step to where we're not just tying up a bunch of time and resources for things that don't necessarily warrant learning teams. There we go. Or they don't warrant learning teams. And it seems to work pretty well for a lot of organizations that use those. But to your point, when we get to that place where we're going, should we do a learning team here? Does this really, is this, because to me, learning teams need to be kept a bit sacred in our organizations. We need to use them where they count. We need to be asking that question, is this learning rich? And it's a very broad, very vague question, and it should be. It's something that we have to be thinking about as organizations. Does this really, I don't know. But yeah, okay, it was a recordable, a pinched finger. Is there really a lot more to learn here about pinching a finger in a door? Is this really where we get everybody together and do? Because okay, let's go back. Why are we doing this? Because it was recordable. It's just outcome bias, right? We get obsessed with that, or we get obsessed with even on the pre-event side. Oh, that sounds. The hammer. We need to do a learning team on hammers. My God, no, you probably just need to go order the hammer, right? Straight to action. Order a couple hammers, have people try them out. All right, basic stuff that we know here. It's all going right back to your point, though. You have to pause. You have to press pause right at the beginning of the process and go, really, objectively, does this need a learning team? And the answer is not always yes. And just because you do more does not equal Mo learning teams does not mean Mo better. It just doesn't work out that way. Do them where they count, right? And I think on the other part of that too, a client that I work with, they did a really great job of getting up and running, and they were doing a bunch of operational learning, and they needed a bunch of operational learning. The downside to that is when if you walked into their little conference room where they kind of have their little learning team headquarters set up, which is kind of cool. They kind of did that, right? Mm-hmm. But there's basically flip chart paper all over the walls, right? Ceiling, floor, all over the walls. And you end up into a bit of information overload piece with that. Now, something that we found with that particular group, and what I see regularly with others, is that when we really get our folks together, like, okay, let's take a day. Give me a day, because we're going to take a day with our little group anyways to do something. Let's do this. Let's go through all of this information. Let's take a look at it. Let's see what we've actually done. But then everything else, what we tend to discover is that, it might be 1,000 things on the wall, but these 100 are similar. We're actually dealing with the same issue here, just said a different way. Let's bucket these together. Oh, okay, we're dealing with this. Okay, it's hard to print engineering drawings. Okay, got it. I can't print engineering. Those are the same thing. Like put those together. Those are the same thing. Right. Oh, wait a second. When I go to open engineering drawings, sometimes they're not. They're the same thing. Right. Pull them into that. And I think when you start to actually bucket and sort those and distill that information down, which I think is a really important part of this process that sometimes that we forget, is that we should work to maybe distill this stuff down into common themes and then approach it more as themes than as individual little actions that everything has to be. I don't know that some places, sure, but not always.
Can I be clear with that?
Yeah.
We're not saying to put trend codes and bucketize everything. That is not what we're saying at all.
What I'm saying is that if you have 14 different learning teams and they're all dealing with engineering documents, you might not need 14 different learning teams. You might need a small handful that focus on overall improvement around access and quality of engineering drawings.
Yes.
Right? So that's really what we're saying, right? You shouldn't. I'm not a fan. I don't know that coding and bucketing and then trying to pull that into some graph really tells us too awful much. I don't know that it really helps the learning process all that much. I guess is what I'm saying.
I don't think so. And again, in the same vein. And y'all can do whatever you want to do. You can have
That's always a key point.
Yes, you can do whatever you want to do. You can have as many buckets as you want. But even with that, even the people that are the best at identifying trends through data, which I know different takes on this. I'm just not a data girl myself, as in like numbers or words on a report. I'm much more learning and having these conversations that helps me see a bigger picture. But even with the folks that are the best at trending and tracking and bucketizing, great, it's the follow through that's the problem. What do we do with that information? And I don't know that I've ever heard anyone answer that question well.
Well, and I think that's the thing, is I don't know that there's a very clear, easy answer to that question. I don't think that exists. I think, as with anything that we have to build, change, construct within our organizations, I don't know that it's ever going to. I don't see it ever being like I hit send on the action and there it was. Like, it's never going to be that way, right? Especially the stuff that we're talking about. We're talking about things that have probably been around for a really long time, that people have had to deal with pain points, problems, issues, suck for a really long time. And they've probably been there for a really long time because those farther away from the work, or at least as an organization, we viewed them as almost holy in some way, right? Not realizing the amount of issue, pain, problems that they're generating. But then on top of that, it's probably not all suck. We can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. We have to pry that thing apart. Okay, what are we keeping? What's getting tossed? What's getting tweaked and tuned? I don't know that that's ever going to be a highly efficient, painless process. I think we can be way more efficient at it than what we are, for sure. And I would probably say that whatever that looks like is going to be very unique to the organization. So like this one that I was mentioning, just a good story of kind of how they did that. A couple things here that's a really interesting part of that story. The first thing that they said to me when I walked in and saw all this stuff, they're like, look at all this data. And so my mind goes to, well, what have you done with some of this stuff? And they're like, we only fixed like 100 things. And I'm like, did you hear what you just said? Right? It might have not been 100, it might have been like 20, but even if it was 20, awesome. That's pretty stinking awesome. So let's pause a second and go back. So 6 months ago, you were doing basically zero operational learning, zero pre-event learning, and this is all of this is pre-event learning, doing basically no pre-event learning. To fast forward 6 months, of course, you're still post-event learning, but you're pre-event learning, and you have the walls covered in information, and you've told me that you fixed 100 things that in the past, or at least improved 100 things that in the past you would have never touched. That in the past, that it's just draw a wildly inaccurate assumption here and say that those 100 things turned into 100 events. And this is just make-believe here, because I don't think that's how that would play out. But just imagine with me that those 100 things turned into 100 events, and then maybe we would have improved those 100 things. These are things that you did proactively. You can't convince me that you suck.
No.
Because who's pre-event learning? Not many people. And we're always waiting for the negative outcome. Right? Of course we are. We're biased towards negative outcome. The other side of that is you've got 1,000 things. Yeah, that's a lot. You got to distill that down, and you got to figure out what you're going to do with some of those things. And not all of those things are going to warrant you doing anything with. That's part of this puzzle too. Is again, just because it comes out of a learning team doesn't mean thou shalt do this now or else. No. If it doesn't turn into something, you need to spend a good amount of time, having that conversation with the folks that were involved in that learning team for sure.
Absolutely.
Complete transparency. Just because you do a learning team doesn't mean there needs to be a whole bunch of actions.
No.
So again, a little rambly here to get to this story that I'm trying to tell you. But actions are not a required part of a successful learning team. Nope. I think that's a piece that needs to be said way more often. Right? Those kind of key outputs of a learning team of an understanding of operational reality or normal work, normal everyday, usually successful work, areas for improvement and ideas for improvement, 3 primary outputs. The last 2 are not required to have a successful learning team. We're still learning on purpose. We still have more information than we had before. Just because you learn doesn't mean there needs to be a whole bunch of fixes. I think that's a fatal flaw, that we get stuck in that trap of just because we do a learning team, we don't have 47 corrective actions and a report that we send to Staples to get the spiral bound in and color printed for the VPs, and it's bad. That's not true.
It's not true.
We're still operationally smarter. We still know more than what we knew before we did that, right? Which I think is really important. The thing I was going to share with you about these folks, sorry, I'm going on a learning team tangent here.
It's okay.
And there's a couple other things I think we need to unpack with learning teams too. Maybe
so much.
Right? Learning teams are not the tool; they are a tool. That's another piece to add to that. They're not magic. You have a lot of mechanisms that you use, a lot of tools that you use to operational learn, and they probably all are okay at different things. Learning teams are not the magic bullet. Okay, I've got that out of the way. Do them where they count. What I was going to share with you about this group, and I helped them to steal a bit of a page out of the old nuclear handbook of a Fix It Now team. So part of what they developed with some of their contract partners and their internal folks is, they basically pushed actions in 2 different directions. Okay, we've got a really good clean fix or improvement for this. This thing needs to be moved 4 foot that way. That piece of equipment needs to be moved 6 foot that way. We need to put netting up around that thing. That thing's just stinking sharp. We just need to cut that out, like those kind of actions, right? Those kind of things. They developed a bit of an internal Fin team, a Fix It Now team, and those folks were there. They're ready, right? They have normal kind of jobs, but they have a certain part of their day carved out that's just dedicated because they have plenty of Fix It Now stuff. That's a full-time job in and of itself, usually in most of our facilities.
Yes.
And so that they would route that action to them. It would basically go quick plan, quick work order production, boom. They have funds set aside for it. It's ready to go. It's ready to go. Just like you would see a really well-constructed Fin team in any setting. Right. So that helped them to start marking stuff off that list. Because as they started to look, they're like, quick fix. We know the improvement here. That's pretty easy. And so boom, you go from 1,000 to 500 pretty quick, right? So that helped them a lot. Some of what they started doing too, and I've seen this quite a bit as of late. Those other ones, as we kind of push those out, you have those executive sponsors or leaders kind of higher in the org, helping to drive those. So that frees up our leaders to be leaders and our managers to manage stuff. And they're managing stuff, right? And they're helping to drive that along the process. But then when they would get to the end of it, instead of just having like a submit around some of those more critical, like this is a package of action that has to get done for it to mean anything. It can't be one, it can't be two, it has to be this whole package. They would do something that's really familiar to us, but in a different way. So they would have, in some of our worlds, we might call it a CARB, a corrective action review board, right? But if you think about that in a more traditional sense, it's usually a bunch of folks wearing ties, sitting around going, do we like what these stinking people did with their actions? That's usually how they play out. And that might sound a little bit too pointed. It's not that pointed. It's with the best of intent, but that's usually what it is. They're sitting around a table much nicer than this one.
Yeah,
and with much more comfortable chairs than our metal dining room chairs. Like they're those big plush ones. Those are nice.
Fancier shoes than we've got.
Exactly. You know when you're in the executive conference room, right? You know. And I get it. I understand. It should look like that. They live there. If you don't know that, they basically spend 18 to 19 hours a day there. They need comfy chairs. But they don't have their finger on the pulse of operational reality. They're not living with the actions that were just created. So what they started doing is what their CARPs would be. Yeah, you might have a leader or somebody in there for sure. Yeah, you might have some safety folks in there for sure. But the people that are really examining the effectiveness of those actions are the folks that have to live with them. That's such a spin on what we've normally considered a CARB, right? Because now we're bringing back in the folks that are doing the work to go through. These are the actions that the learning team come up with. Some of you were probably on the learning team. Not all of you were on the learning team. But your teams are living with this action. You've lived through the micro experimenting of this. You have your hands on it now as deployed. Is it working? How's it working? What's that look like?
What are we missing?
That's way better. I just want to let you know than me as a VP going, I don't know. It sounds great.
Yes.
And that's not a knock on them. It's just that. We know. We've been there. So, it seems like it looks good. I like it. Yep. Done. So those are a couple of things that they started doing that I found really interesting on learning their way towards what efficiency looks like in bringing those actions to life. And I think that's probably where the answer lives. Again, I don't know that there's one right answer there. Probably not. I think it's something that we as organizations have to learn our way towards to get more efficient at it, with the understanding that some of it's going to suck and some of it's going to take some, not kicking on people, but kicking on actions. Like, this is important. This is important. I told you last week, this is important. It's going to take some of that, as it always has and probably always will, as long as we're dealing with people, right?
For sure. Well, and I don't want to skate over, because it's when I'm talking to especially like an executive team about what a learning team is, you have to kind of deliver the fact that it is different, much more chaotic. It's not going to be this pretty form that is the silver bullet and you have everything you need. And you might not have actions. Yeah. And that is so weird for people. Yeah. They're like, then why did I do this? There's no value there. But as we just talked about, there's a ton of value there. It's getting them to embrace this idea that we value and prioritize the act of learning. Period. Yes. Even if it doesn't result in 47 corrective actions. Nope. Even if it doesn't result in a whole bunch of change. I think that we have to value and prioritize learning, because learning alone, we know that learning alone is worth it. We also know that a bunch of actions without a healthy dose of learning is just a bunch of actions. And usually, at the very least, they're meaningless actions. And most of the time, they're painful actions. They're things that make things far worse, create more migraines than less, make work harder rather than easier, and on and on and on and on. So if we get to the end of a learning team and we go, didn't come up with a whole bunch of stuff to fix, we learned a bunch, I would chalk that up as a pretty successful day. Absolutely. And that's not the end all be all. If we still think that there's more to learn there, we can always revisit the thing. We can always come back to that. We can always take a look at it a little bit later, or even immediately after with a new group of folks. We can continue to tap into that operational reality if we think that there's something more there. Or maybe when we asked that question at the beginning and we said, is this learning rich? Do we think that maybe we were wrong? And maybe it's not. And that's okay too. We still learned something. We still learned that, hey, maybe that's not as big of a problem as what we thought, what we might have thought it was. Sure. Well, and I should have said this at the beginning. I don't come from the safety world. I'm not a safety professional. I do not have a safety background. And so a lot of the things that I am looking at, I am learning about, are more operations. And I don't mean operations in the sense of your operations department. I mean, like, how things are happening in your organization.
How we get things done around here.
How we get things done. And so I am not lying when I say that every single learning team I have been a part of, at the end, I've heard someone say, I've been a part of this process for 15 years and I had no idea that was the impact. I had no idea that's how that worked. I had no idea that group was doing that. I had no idea that what we were doing was making it more difficult for another group. Yeah. So sometimes you don't even have to have a formal action. It's that understanding has a huge impact.
Well, so much of what we see, what I tend to encounter, so a couple things there, I think. First, I think many organizations start doing learning teams as safety things. And then very quickly you go, crap, this isn't a safety thing. Right, which is good. That's good.
Yes.
And many that I've seen that have matured far along this path, they kind of get to this point to where they go, I don't think safety at all. I think I don't think we need to say the word safety anymore.
Nope.
Like let's just make things better. There we go. Right, because for me, I've not been a part of a learning team that has, even if it started in the name of safety, right, that just tapped into safety stuff.
Of course not. Yeah.
I've never been a part of a quality learning team, where I spend, oddly enough, a lot of my time. I spend a lot of time with food manufacturers, which is cool.
It is very cool.
The downside of that is when you're trying not to eat sugar and stuff, they send you a bunch of stuff. Shucks. Halloween's going to be good in Litchfield Park. If anybody's in Arizona, swing on by. We'll be the fully decorated house that you're afraid to send your kids to. That's what we shoot for every year. But no, I've not seen where we started with a quality something and not tapped into a safety something too, or tapped into an efficiency or just a general headache something, or oh my God, we're really great at this and here's how we're really great at this, into efficiency and operations and safety and on and on and on, environmental something and this and that and the other. I've not seen it's not that box into your point. Learning teams are messy, and learning teams are messy because work is messy. Work is messy, so learning about work is going to be messy. You can't box it in. If you try to box it in, you're going to miss a whole bunch of stuff you really wish that you would have missed. You're going to end up with, this is a safety something, and we just fix safety stuff. Right? And, okay, good on you, I guess. But you're going to miss a whole bunch. They go where they need to go. That's what makes them, to me, so wildly interesting.
Very interesting.
It's a bit of slightly structured chaos. That's it. Work is messy, so learning about work will be messy. But I think that as we continue down that path to what you're saying about this kind of just accepting that learning is enough. Everyone that sits around that table, and I think it's two things that I don't think that we highlight enough about the learning team process when used as intended, probably. Asterisk to put that in there. After you laid a bit of groundwork and all the basic stuff that we tend to talk about. That if you just do learning teams without all the other stuff, you're just probably doing more of the same and calling it learning teams. Worst day ever, right? Worst day ever. But the two things that I don't think we highlight enough is, first, when you do operational learning and you involve those nearest to the work in operational learning, and you bring in those SMEs that you probably need for some of these learning teams, because it might be a safety something or a quality something or environmental something. Everyone on that learning team learns something from each other, and they carry that forward. And just by the nature of that learning, they tend to tweak and adjust how they do things. It's an improvement. Whether we get all bent up around the axle about if we don't capture it, if it doesn't have an action number associated to it, if there's not, a corrective action something generated with it, if we couldn't measure it, then it didn't happen. I've got news for you. I mean, I grew up in fire and EMS, and you for security background and a whole family in law enforcement. We know the mantra: if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. That's not true, though.
That's not true.
That's not true. It still counts for something.
It does.
Maybe when it gets to that point of like, I really need to show that this, that helps a lot. That helps a lot when you need to be like, listen, here's what I did. Of course that helps. We can't say that it's not a bit helpful, but to pretend that something didn't happen just because it's not captured, it still happened.
Yes.
It still happened. Each person on that learning team carries something forward with them. They learn so much from the folks that they're on the learning team with. And then even from that, even if it's not a captured something, or maybe it feels like a grain of sand in this overarching kind of desert of improvement. But even if that action, and maybe it is captured, it's just a tweak or an adjust. That's almost all what I've seen that we pull out of learning teams anyways. Micro improvements and adjustments. They're not go fill in that hole that's eating people. Because again, we mentioned that. We're good at that.
Yeah, it's already done.
It's the stuff that's not so easy to see. And some of those things just take a little tune or a little tweak. Yeah, I didn't know you were dealing with that. Yeah, we could definitely have an electrician here overnight. That's easy. And I know one that would love to do it.
No, absolutely. And there's a second part to it. I think people equate improvement with adding something.
Right. Yeah.
I would say that
add to, never take away.
Yes,
right.
That's not true.
Yep.
And I would say more than not, it's not true. Double negatives.
Yeah.
Grammar's not my strong suit. But people always are looking for like, well, what can we add? What can we add? What can we add? And it's like, I think we should add. I'm doing it now. Add something where it's like, what can we take away?
Yeah.
What can we remove? And I don't think we're that comfortable with that sentiment yet, but it's like, if you have this thing, and every organization has it, there's something that's so important. We've just got to get it right. We've got to focus all our attention here, but we have 50 other things happening over here that are just kind of frustrating, kind of annoying, kind of take our attention away.
Yeah.
If we can remove them or make them better, guess how much more attention you have on this thing over here that we say pay attention to, focus on, spend all your time on. Removing is as good as adding something positive.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think it even leads into that idea that, even inaction is an action, right, on certain things. Right? I think we have to acknowledge that. So to your point, it resonates with me very deeply because there's kind of this general rule of thumb around things that are important to us in our work world. So we think we always have to be adding to, and we're never allowed to take away. We've all experienced this at some point. If anyone that's ever operated in a corporate setting for more than a split second, you know that once something is deployed in the organization, it takes like 47 years to change it or undo it, because once it goes out, it's there now. It's that add to, never take away mentality. And I think it's because we think that if we're taking away, then we're somehow causing harm, when maybe taking away is actually making things far better.
Yes.
Right? And maybe causing so much harm. So I completely agree with you. I think that we have to understand that when we go down that path of tweak, tune, modify, there's also an option for grenade. And it's not always the option, but there is the option. When we think about pain points, problems, and issues, sometimes we just have to get to the point where we say, why the heck are we even doing this in the first place? This doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And a lot of times when we explore that path pretty deeply, we find that, so-and-so 20 years ago really wanted us to do that, so we started doing that. They retired 15 years ago, but we just kind of kept, why are we, I don't know, because we've always done it. We've always done that thing. There's a general principle that I think fits in, or should be at least asked with our actions. And it's not always true. But generally speaking, when we go to add to something, or modify, tweak, tune, or take away, I think we should be asking this question: does it make things easier?
Yes.
If it makes things harder, I would probably think really hard about that before we move forward. Sometimes we have to make things harder. We agree that things need, for whatever reason, this is worthwhile. It is worthwhile, and it will be a bit harder, but it's worthwhile. Okay. But I would have a bit of pause when we think about actions, adding to, taking away, tweaking, tuning, whatever that looks like. Does this make life easier for the folks that actually have to do this thing? The answer is yeah. And it hits those other boxes that we're looking for it to hit. Okay, it works. It's co-created with those that need to use it, and it makes their life easier. Great. But I think that helps us quite a bit when we get into that add to thing. Are we adding to because it feels good, or just because it feels like the right thing to do? Or is this actually, we're adding to this system, this process, this something, and is it resulting in things being less error likely? Is it resulting in less brittleness? And is it making things a little bit easier? We know that we're finding our way into, or learning our way into at least some probably more meaningful actions.
Yeah.
Usable and probably more enjoyable for those folks that actually have to use them.
Yeah. I think it's so important because we fall into the space of like, add, improve. Yes, let's improve everywhere we can, but
improve doesn't always equal add.
No, sometimes improve equals remove.
Right.
And adding that in there, I think it's so important. And again, it goes back to how we're conditioned to learn or address things. It's like, what can we add to this, or what can we change about this? But sometimes it's, what can we get rid of that is not adding value, that's making the work more difficult, more frustrating.
Right.
Just complicating things.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other piece that I was going to add with learning teams that I think wildly under promoted is that learning teams are an extension of trust.
Yeah.
Right. So even if you go through that process and you learn something, right, that being the only required output to have a successful learning team. But beyond that, just the fact that you convened this group of folks nearest to the work, you extended trust to them. Right? You've created an environment in which honesty is possible to have this learning team. You've carved that space out. People can teach you the raw, the real, the good, the bad, the ugly, the scary. They do that. And they tell you, like, there's not a whole bunch of stuff we should do here. Like, there's not any obvious improvements. But, yeah, we can tweak and tune that. But there's not anything big, grand, rapid that we should work on here. Maybe not even anything all that formal. But those folks walk away from that experience with this understanding of, okay, they want to hear. Like, they're not so concerned with how they imagine work happening. They really want to know reality. And they took the time and the resources. Maybe they even bought us burritos, right? And they put us in this room and they trusted us to do this thing. Learning teams are an extension of trust to those nearest to the work, and they pay dividends, even if they don't result in 47 corrective actions. That group learning that we each walk away with, that greater understanding of whatever that something was that we were trying to learn more about up throughout the organization, up that stick, as we see so often in our world, right? And those folks walking away going, that didn't suck. All of those things come together, even without a big old PowerPoint full of a bunch of actions. It's still worth it. It's still worth it. Those two things, I think, in particular, are wildly undercommunicated.
I agree. I think there's so many misconceptions out there. And again, it's how we've been conditioned, though.
Yeah. And
something I speak about when I'm in a safe bubble of people is we always joke and we say it's all made up. It's all, and it is. Everything is all made up, by the way. But it's all made up. And so if we need to change it, or we need to redirect, or we need to reset expectations around what we're trying to do, then do it.
Do it. Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds scary, but just do it.
It sounds a lot scarier. It sounds a lot scarier than what it truly is. Once you jump off that cliff, or I guess down the rabbit hole of doing things a bit differently, you quickly go, well, that's not that scary. That's what I tell people with learning teams all the time is just pick something and try. Go try. Like, probably not your next big event.
Yeah,
probably not there. That big, gigantic something, right? But that place where it's a bit safe to fail, maybe it's that something you've been chipping away at for years and you just haven't had any real meaningful impact with it, whatever it might, but whatever that might be or whatever that might look like. What have you got to lose? Whatever you've done before is not working. Give something a little bit different a shot and just go try it. I think that rings true through so much of what we're talking about is don't be afraid of just rolling up your sleeves and trying to do things a bit differently, and just small little things. It's not this big overarching change, something that just happens overnight. Getting started with those small scale, safe to fail, little micro experiment here. Let's try that out over there. I know that leader, they already kind of think this way. I'm going to try to do something a little bit different over there with them and see what the result is. And that would be a good opportunity to do a learning team pre-event. That'd be, and if it goes well, oh my God, we can tell that story really, and on and on. You just have to get over that initial fear of doing things a bit differently. And then when you do, my God, the difference that you see, especially right at the beginning. Right?
Yeah.
That frustration conversation that we had before, at the beginning, it does not feel like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's usually more towards, okay, the excitement phase is over. Now we're in the do the work phase, the learn and improve over time phase. Mm-hmm. That's where you're going, my God, can't we just get with it?
Yes, absolutely. It's mind-boggling. And you said something about like finding the leaders that kind of think this way. I think if you are trying to go on this journey, find your people. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It doesn't matter how strict and rigid your organization is. They're there.
They're there.
And
they live with you right now in your organization.
They are there right now, and you have to find your people. And some of the biggest areas of success for me personally is gaining those people that do have a little bit of influence, that do have some say-so, and saying, trust me to just go try.
Yeah.
And they will.
They will. There are folks throughout your organization right now, even if you have not even scratched the surface on this journey at all, they live with you right now. Mm-hmm. They do. At every level. They live in the C-suite. They're that director that's over there on whatever. They're that frontline employee. And it always sounds a bit woo when I tell people to close their eyes. But if you close your eyes and you think about those people in your organization that already kind of think this way, you know them, at least you know of some of them, that maybe those leaders that maybe they already kind of lead with these principles in mind. Maybe they're already super curious. They're already trying to do things a bit differently. They're already approaching things with maybe, again, some of those principles or some of these key ideas. They might already be living and leading through these things, and they don't know that it's called hopping. Good that they don't know that it's hop. Those are the people that we're talking about. We call them bright spots, or these the little folks that you need to build your hop army in your organization, because it's never done by one person. It can't be. But to that point, those folks live in the C-suite. They live at the sharp end, and they live everywhere in between. And you need a seat at all of those tables. Find those folks, even if it's just that one VP of something. Right, that at least when those high-level conversations are happening in the organization, you know that they're kind of the voice of hop, that they're going to speak up and they're going to have that conversation with their peers. And positive peer pressure is a hell of a thing. And when they go, I don't think that tarring and feathering that person is probably the right move. Let's maybe see what we can learn here. That is like rocket fuel on this process.
It absolutely is. And it's... I find that a lot of the scariness behind go try is, our industry is very dangerous. Our industry is very regulated. Our industry, this, that, and the other. If you have those people, they can help you navigate that within the confines, right? There are people in your organization that will help you, and there are people in your organization that are set there to protect the organization. So you should probably find some of them too, because they can help you try and fail again within confines. And I promise, with the industries that we both have worked with, regardless of danger, regardless of risk, regardless of regulation, regardless of whatever entity that is overseeing it, if we can go on this hop journey with the industries that we've worked with, I promise yours can.
Yeah, and what was kind of sticking out to me when you said that, the high risk, and we most of those industries that we're talking about, right? I mean, we have the opportunity, and we have killed and maimed people. In the past. We have harmed the environment or the public in some way, shape, or form. We have a bunch of regulations that deal with whatever we're doing, and on and on and on and on. And what I was thinking as you're kind of saying that is, that's every industry.
It is.
That's every industry. We like to use that as kind of the out. Well, we're special. You don't understand. Now, you don't understand, right? Yeah, that's everybody. You might deal with a different regulator or a different group of regulators, but we all have that. Those, I'm not even going to call those problems. We all have that environment. We all have that environment that we deal with. So yeah, it's an easy out. That's probably the nicest way to put it. Is we're different, we're unique. Now you don't understand bottling carbonated beverages, right? You don't. Aviation is, but healthcare. and on and on and on and on and on and on, right? We all deal with that.
Absolutely.
It is not an out. Right?
It's
So don't use it as the crutch. Will it be different and unique, and you have your own set of challenges dealing with? Absolutely. But I think exactly what you just said. You have folks there that know those things. And I think what's vital to that, as you start on this journey, I'm a big proponent of laying groundwork. I think you have to lay a good chunk. We're talking learning teams, right? I don't think that you can just go into a very, very, very traditional focused organization and let's just say maybe mismanaged is probably the right way to put that, where it's very untrusting. I can't tell you the truth. Those type of environments. So traditional is probably not the right way to put it. Just maybe call it mismanaged. Yeah. If you just go in there and say, we're doing learning teams today, it's going to be horrible.
It's going to be bad.
You're just going to have learning teams that result in disciplinary action forms. Like, it's going to be the worst, right? And it's going to set you back way back, right? You're way worse off than when you started. Now, when I say lay the groundwork, some people hear that and they think, well, yeah, that's going to take like 15 years, right? Like, no, no, back to bright spots and doing learning teams around the things, the right opportunities where they count, especially at first as you get started, but not only there, but doing them where they count. So back to, I know that director and I know that manager and I know that location. This is a great place to experiment because they're bright spots. They're already kind of thinking and leading in this direction a bit. I know that when they get information, they just view it as information. They're not going to crap their pants and freak out. Like, they're going to view it as, this is good. Yep. Great place to start. But laying that groundwork a bit and then getting operational learning happening. You're going to have to have like a facilitator probably to start with, or a small group of facilitators, and it's going to be hard and it's going to suck and it's going to feel weird. Right? It's going to be all those different things. But getting that operational learning happening so it can inform where you go. Because to your point, the regulatory challenges, the process challenges, the critical risk challenges, the weird, unique technology that we work with challenges. If you're operational learning from the folks that know those things, and those things that learning is helping to inform what your journey looks like, then you're golden. All the challenges that we just talked about, we all tend to use as a crutch. I know I've used it, we all have. Oh, we're different. Okay. That just means you have to learn more about those things on the way. Yep. That's it.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And I think that it's kind of interesting because when we're talking about this groundwork piece, I think building those relationships, finding those bright spots is absolutely part of that.
It's a huge part of that. Yeah.
And
it's not just teaching hot fundamentals.
No, right? No. I mean, that's great, but no, it's not just teaching hot fundamentals. It's building those relationships, because even though it doesn't feel like it, if you are one of the people in your organization that's kind of guiding this top journey, you're going down this path, you do own this, even if it doesn't feel like it. So as a facilitator, I think it's our responsibility to set expectations too. And so going in when you're going to try this, hey, if we're interested in finding the one cause, or you're interested in finding the 47 corrective actions, or you want to find who to blame, me as a facilitator, I'm going to say, I'm not doing it then. Yeah, we're not ready. I'm not interested.
Not ready. Yep.
So building those relationships, having the safe space, if you will, of people that will rally around you where you can try this stuff is so important, but also understanding that you own it. Yeah. You do own it, and you can control you and what you do. And if you're in a situation where it can't be conducive to what we're trying to do, don't do it.
Yeah. Don't just go along with this one, right? We all know this one. Don't just fall into the trap of the VP said, so I'm gonna. Right? That's not our role. That's not our role. And in a lot of ways, especially when we start early on in this journey and throughout, right, we have to be a bit of that voice of reason to those folks that are going, hey, I'm just going to, and you're like, well, can we talk about it first, please? Please. Right? Can we chat about that? But I think it leads into another really important part of that. And I say this just about every episode nowadays, and I say this just about everywhere I go nowadays. For some weird reason, I have to say that leaders are people too. Like, your vice president of operations is a person, and probably a really stinking good one. And they usually get it right, and they sometimes get it wrong. Just like us as practitioners, just like folks on the front line, just like your frontline leader. We're just people. And no matter what chair you sit in that organizational hierarchy, I think the best description that I've come up with for anybody at any level in our organization. It's good people doing good work with the best of intentions, creating mostly good outcomes, mostly getting it right.
Yes.
And we sometimes get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yep. So as we think about what that journey looks like, connecting those bright spots that you discover, and maybe the ones that are maybe on the fence a bit, but connecting those folks with resources that can help them. Mm-hmm. And a resource, one of the best ones, is hey, Heather, I really, really want to kick this person in the teeth. Here's what happened. Right? Yes. Just giving them that bit of a phone a friend, a battle buddy, a lifeline, it goes a long way. So back to building, a part of laying that groundwork is not only finding those bright spots, but as you put it, building those relationships and letting them know that no matter what level you are in this, we're in this together, and I'm here to help you. I'm not going to have all the answers. I'm going to come up with some wacky ones sometimes.
Yes.
But I think together, if we can at least agree on some of these basic things, right? If we can at least agree on some of these better assumptions, with the understanding that I'm going to get it wrong, you're going to get it wrong, we're all going to get it wrong. I think together, though, I'm here to help you. You're here to help me. We can figure this thing out. Talk about magic's not real, but things that feel like magic. That's a huge part of that journey. That's a huge part of that.
It is, because, and again, I think those relationships take away the scary, because a lot of folks that are guiding these HOP journeys or practitioners themselves are usually not a VP. They're usually
they don't have to be.
They don't have to be at all. But sometimes that can feel scary if you're like, okay, this isn't the right path, but a VP is telling me to go do this. That can feel really scary to be like, no. But having that support system so that it's not a no, it's a maybe we do this and we have the support to go do this other thing. Well, it sets us up for success.
I think what you're saying, but back to that point with the relationship, not to continue to harp on that, but it's important.
It's so important.
You develop this understanding, right, where it's like, if Heather's telling me no, there's a really damn good reason. Like Heather's, I know Heather. Like, I know you. Like, we know each other. And if I'm like rallying for this and I'm the VP of something, you're thinking the same thing. You're going, I know Sam. He's not just like drop kicking people in the teeth. Like, what's up? All right, we know that we're coming at this maybe from two different angles, and we might be approaching it completely differently. But we know each other, and we can have that conversation, because when I say I'm gonna and you say no, we're not going, well, screw you, I'm the VP of something, and you're saying no, I don't want. Like, we're not there. It's okay. If there's a mismatch, there's a really good reason, and we probably need to figure that out. And you're probably not all the way right, and I'm probably not all the way right. You're not all the way wrong. I'm probably not. Let's pause, right? Let's pause and maybe figure that out. I think that relationship is what greases the gears of that happening. Without that relationship, without that understanding of who we are as people, and that relationship that then kind of greases those gears, I think we usually tend to devolve into, well, screw Heather.
And it
she
does.
said no. She's not allowed to say no. She works for me.
Yeah, it does turn into that without the relationships. I've seen it happen. It turns into that, because then it's like, just don't invite Heather. She always says no.
Right.
We're not dealing with her.
Yeah.
If you don't have those relationships, you become the person that's talking crazy, and you miss out on so much without the relationships.
I did a podcast on this a while back, and I think I need to revisit it, because to me it's such a really interesting thing. In side tangent, so I apologize. I won't keep you too much longer.
I squirrel all the time.
I know we've been going for a while, but it's this. In our work roles, we really like black and white answers, right, wrong, yes, no, no in between. Right. So when I hear like we were talking about ways, and this is a really tactical way to promote some of those conversations that doesn't negate the relationship piece. Like, I'm the person that encourages folks all the time, like, you just go invite that VP for coffee. They'll probably drink coffee with you. They'll probably go. It might take you 2 weeks to get on their calendar, because we said they live in that office for 19 hours. And if you're a practitioner or someone maybe farther down in that hierarchy in the organization, if you ever have that thought, it's side tangent on a side tangent. If you ever have that thought, you go, I bet those VPs are just lazy. If you ever have that thought, if their calendar's not private, go look at it.
It's scary.
It's stacked from like 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. It's got everything from spending time with frontline folks to hanging out with a governor sometimes.
It absolutely does.
It's all work. Like, just go look at it. But where I was going with this is, you've built that relationship. You've got them out there to have a cup of coffee. You've been talking to them about this stuff. You got to know them really well. You've built up that rapport with them. Good, check. Awesome. It's far easier once you do that. But then on the other side of that, when you're dealing with those pain points, problems, issues, when you're having to bring them information that you know that they don't want to have to hear and you don't want to have to tell them, that makes that far easier as well. It just makes things go so much smoother overall. But then every step along the way, it feels like it just gets a little bit easier and easier and easier and easier over time, even when things are really wildly challenging. Because it's something that we were saying before, where you're just kind of, you don't walk into that room going, oh God, Heather's going to say no. I know when Heather said, oh, right? You're not dealing with that. But to bring this back to my first side tangent, after 2 or 3 on the side there, and people that listen to this, they know what they're in for, so just letting you know. But when I have to approach something like that, and it's going to be the typical yes or no question. Again, I did an episode on this. There's a power to the word maybe. When that executive comes in and says, I'm going to kick out their teeth because this went wrong, and I know that it was Jane. And I think Bob was there too. And Carl was watching. So he should have stopped them. I'm going to kick out all their teeth, right? Because they bring us those conversations, and sometimes we bring them those conversations. We have to acknowledge that too. I went to that stupid leader, and I've been trying to get them to do this. Would not schedule this. We all do that. When we approach that with, I don't know, is that the right? Maybe that's the answer. Let's talk about it instead of just going where we tend to go because we're passionate. We mentioned the passion piece. We're going to go, no, what are you, just some cruel, sadistic bastard that like to kick their employees in the teeth? Right? Maybe. I don't know. I know Bob, Jane, and Carl. They do not suck. Like, they're pretty awesome folks. Maybe let's explore this a bit deeper. If that's the answer, okay. If you think that's it, if we get to the end of this and that's the right, okay. But I think that's a solid maybe right now. And I love maybe because maybe takes us towards more conversation. Yes or no shuts down the conversation. Yeah. It's yes, we're doing that. Okay, done. No, we're not done. Okay, done. And then if it's a contested yes or no, then maybe a little bit of argument, but no real meaningful conversation. No, when we approach those situations with maybe. So back to like a tactical thing that people can do instead of just, because I like to fall into the yes or no thing too, because I'm like, what are you? Oh. Yep. And I have to go, maybe kicking them in the teeth is right, but I don't think so. Maybe. Let's explore this.
Well, and
let's understand.
And making it known, not that it matters what we say at all, but throwing it out there that at the end of all of this, you can still do whatever you feel you need to do. Yeah. Mr., Mrs., VP of operations. You can still make whatever decision you think is right. But does it hurt to take a second just to learn a little bit more? Let me try my crazy approach to this. Let me try this. You still get to do whatever you feel is right at the end of the day.
Well, and for those executive folks out there, it's surprising to me how many listen, but will never admit that they listen.
And that's okay.
And I love it. I get it. Trust me. Yeah. I don't listen to that lunatic from Arizona. What are you talking about?
That's okay.
That's okay. That's totally fine. But what's amazing to me with that is that something that you can do as a leader, I'd say executive, but any level of leader in an organization where, let's just say something maybe not so great happens, unintended operational surprise, right? Safety or otherwise. And you're in a position of people bringing you this information, right? They're bringing this report to you. They're bringing this operational learning to you. You're in that game of phone tag that we play where they're calling you and going, hey, listen, I know it's Saturday, but here's what it was. We put the fire out. It's, those kind of conversations. people tend to bring you the stuff that they think that you want to hear, especially if they're in your direct chain of command. And it just is what it is. When people have been bringing you the answer, it was Bob, Jan, and Carl, damn it, and I already took care of it, and you go, good. Guess what they're bringing you next time? It was John Bob this time. He screwed it up. Same process, same problem. Can you believe it? I thought that we told him to care more, right? People are going to bring you that. When they bring you that, and you say something that sounds more like, I don't know, when you use the maybe, maybe it was John Bob. I don't know. But I don't know. John Bob, it doesn't seem, I don't think so. Go be sure.
Yep.
Bring me something, see if there's anything more interesting there. It feels like there's something more to this. You should probably go dig a little bit deeper and bring me back that. Take as much time as you need. But go dig a bit deeper into that and let me know what you find out. It's amazing what people start bringing you.
It is. Well, either you're going to find out that there was more to the story, or you're going to find out that you have a hiring process that exclusively hires Disney villains.
Yeah. Or maybe in the middle, you have a hiring process that mismatches people with work.
Yes, absolutely. If you keep finding villains and that's all you're finding,
so
problem.
If you find the Disney villain piece, you need to ask yourself that question.
Yes.
If you find yourself with a genuine, we need to kick Bob in the teeth, you need to understand how that person gets into your organization.
Yes.
And this is going to sound real woo-woo to maybe some folks out there, but unless Bob is just showing up to do you a whole bunch of harm and like terroristic acts, I still think you got an organizational problem.
Yeah, I agree. He's a saboteur, my favorite word. He's a saboteur. How did we get there?
How did we get there?
There's always something more interesting.
Right. And for those folks that are, you have a person that is matched with the wrong work. Guess whose problem that is? It's not the person that's matched with the wrong work. I mean, unless they were just absolutely, the resume has been tripled.
Yes.
You still have a how the heck did we do that?
That could be a whole other side quest. But another area of passion is there are people that find themselves in the wrong role.
Right.
And I make jokes all the time because anyone that knows me would know it's true. I would be a terrible accountant. I'm bad at numbers. I mix them up. Don't put me near your numbers.
Same. But I could probably get a job as an accountant.
I could find somewhere I could be an accountant.
Yeah,
why not? I would be a terrible lineman. Any role that puts me in the field in the Arizona sun for hours at a time, I would be passed out. I would be a liability. Don't put me in that role. Does that mean that I'm a bad employee? Does that mean that I don't add value? Absolutely not. No. And so I think that organizations should spend a lot of time supporting folks that find themselves in the wrong role and getting them in a different role. Otherwise, you're going to lose really good people just because they're in the wrong role. Yeah,
I agree. And I think it actually stemmed from some of the conversations that you and I've had. But we see that a lot with leaders. Right. Oh. And we know the general pathway to leadership in many organizations is that you're great at whatever you were doing, and then now you're a leader. And so I've been on this kind of rallying cry with a lot of organizations that I spend time with. Like, you got to promote from inside. That's great. Give folks a shot, but when they get in there and they go, I really don't want to do this, the strategy shouldn't be, okay, they're shit canned.
No.
The strategy should be, they're a great employee. Maybe they don't want to be a leader. Let's see if we've got something else they can do. That seems to be the normal path for leaders, right? I started out doing this. I was really stinking great at that. Then they made me the king or queen of that thing. And then I got there and I realized that I don't really want to do leadership. I thought I wanted to do leadership, but I don't. The strategy shouldn't just be, okay, they're gone now. It shouldn't be sink or swim. There should be a path back to something that they were over or around. A good employee is a good stinking employee. You don't want to be in the business of hemorrhaging stinking great employees just because they don't want to be a leader. Right? You shouldn't. And so I think that's again, side quest, a really deep conversation.
It's so important. It's so critical. But I mean, are you shocked that between you and I, we've gone on like 15 different side quests?
No, well, that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the point, right? That was my whole idea with this entire hangout was just to talk And I think we have. And I've got one more kind of question for you, I think, before we start to wrap things up, but in this same vein. But the whole intent, my deal is to have a conversation, the down and dirty of what this looks like, right? So the real and realistic of what this looks like. I've worked on it internally. You're working on it internally. I think it's just a different experience, right? I get, maybe I don't know that I get in trouble, but I like to yell at the people that are yelling about this stuff. And what I mean by that is like, there's a lot of folks out there that just want to argue about this stuff, and they're not so concerned about like, okay, what are we actually doing in our companies? So I always appreciate that perspective of boots on the ground. How are we creating positive, meaningful change within our work worlds? Or how are we putting a dent in things? Not so much about like how we're yelling about it on the internet, but like how this is actually happening. So back to the intent of this podcast was to have this conversation, the squirrel conversation of all over the map of this is where it sucks, and this is where it's great, and this is kind of what you see, and these are the things that we still haven't quite figured out, and but we know we're moving in the right general direction, but I don't know. Right, that conversation, because that's the conversation that folks out there that maybe are just thinking about this, or they're looking at that, where I know I've been, you've been, where we're going, okay, what the fuck? What do I do? Okay, well, I don't know. Is it worth it? That thing. We've all been there. For those folks to hear a bit of that.
Well, that's an accurate representation. Then side quest is the answer.
Yeah.
Everything we do is a side quest.
Always. Well, because as soon as you move down that direction, and I think it goes maybe to another overarching theme of HOP of not being a program to manage, but being an operating philosophy, a collection of beliefs, ideas, better assumptions, right? That we tend to apply through a core set of principles, you end up on many, many side quests, because you start with a bit of a plan, and then you quickly realize that, okay, the plans are good. I need a bit of a recipe, but it needs to be flexible. And then once I get into this part of the recipe, I'm like, oh, shit. I needed self-rising flour, not that flour. Now I've got to go side tangent, or side we've done a few of those too. Side quest to the grocery store. Now the road's shut down. Or do I go? It's that. You're
that
figuring it out. And back to that point we were making earlier about having operational learning happening so you can feed real-time information into that plan. It matters. It matters if you want that plan to be somewhat effective. But view it more, even plan is probably the wrong word. I tend to go towards recipe now, because you can start with a recipe and maybe not have the exact ingredients you thought you needed. And with enough ingenuity and figuring out, you can kind of make this pretty decent end product.
It's like a recipe that you're figuring out what the ingredients are as you go.
As you go. Yeah. Well, and kind of, yeah. It's one of those. Do you watch Bake Off?
I mean, I have.
Yeah, the Great British Baking Show.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that one. But it's like that when they get in the challenge, right? There's one of those, like it might be I think it's the technical. It's one of those things, right, in that thing. Which there's a new season coming out, actually. Yeah, in case you didn't know, I saw one of them on Instagram posting about a new season, so I'm pumped for that. But it's like that where they give you like the instructions, but the instructions are like half there. They're very vague. It's just like add salt to this. So you're like, how much salt? Right, or it's like put in a pan. You're like, which pan?
Yeah,
right? like those kind of things. It is sweetened to taste, right? It's that. It is that where you might have. I think there's enough information throughout the greater community of practice where we kind of know, like some of these things, like they're in our work worlds, we might call them milestones or road signs or something along those lines. Where it's like, yeah, we know that we need this. I don't know exactly how to do that, but I know that it maybe should go somewhere, roughly speaking. We'll rough it in somewhere here. We know kind of those level of directions. I don't think that you can know much deeper than that until you start doing. You have to start doing, and you kind of have that plan built on this kind of general knowledge. It's like, yeah, we know we need a bit of a plan, so let's kind of guess a little bit and work with those throughout our organizations that are our bright spots to maybe figure out what we can do right now and what we need to push out. Yep, let's do that. We know we need to get operational learning happening. I don't know that we can do that tomorrow, But maybe a good educated guess is maybe right in here somewhere on our plan. And then you start that and you go, holy crap, that was wrong, but that was right. And then I'm going to tweak this a little bit and add a little bit of salt over here, and this needs a little sugar. And you just do that. You're elbows deep in it, figuring it out as you go, as an organization, as a as a team, you're figuring out what that looks like.
But that's what makes it so cool.
That's absolutely what makes it so cool.
Because I'm sure you run into the same problem. People are like, well, what do you do like every day?
Yeah.
Like, depends.
Yeah, I think that what I see in our world, in the world of hop, generally speaking, is that there are many organizations out there that are looking for the silver bullet. Yeah. And back to being conditioned to do that, they are, right? Every time, and back to maybe even being viewed as only a safety something. That's what we've done with safety somethings is we did this back in 73, and then we needed a new safety initiative, and then we bought this, and we did that, and then, that went a little stale, and then we bought that. And you can't just buy an off-the-shelf something. Back to a joke I made earlier that if someone's selling you an easy answer and off the shelf, just buy this binder from me and human organizational performance will be yours. Or anything else. Insert anything else here. They're lying.
They're lying.
They're lying to you. It's got to be yours. And you've got to figure it out. You've got to get started and you've got to experiment your way through it. Micro experiment, as we said, but you got to figure it out. With that information that's out there, all the tools that are out there, you've got to figure out how that plugs into your work world, how that works in your work world. You should adapt it. You should tweak it. You should tune it. You should always do that through the lens of those principles. It has to stay true to those better beliefs and assumptions, or it's not hop.
Yep.
But you should figure it out. Yep. And that takes a whole bunch of getting it wrong. That takes a whole bunch of going crap. That takes a whole bunch of we went 20 steps forward, we went 10 steps back, but thank God we're still 10 steps forward. Sometimes you're in the negatives. It takes a whole bunch of that. That's how we make things better. I think we make things better, and really we figure things out on this journey and in so many other things that we do, not only in our work worlds but as people. Sometimes we figure it out by getting it so wrong that we figure out how to get it right. That's just part of it, and you just have to accept that process. So where I was going was, if you're looking for the easy answer, somebody will give it to you.
Not us.
But it's not going to be the answer. And it's probably going to cost you
yes.
a real pretty penny. If you're looking for easy answers, somebody will sell you one in anything out there, any category. But I think you're going to be disappointed. You still have to put in the work and the effort and the figuring out and the failing and the trying again and the tweaking and the tuning and the beating your head against the wall and the begging and the pleading and the crying and that's just how it goes.
So, yeah, but I think that's what makes it great. The people that love that find their way to hop. The people that want to learn and to try and do better and to get it wrong and to pick themselves back up, and they find their way.
Yeah. Yeah. Last question.
Yep.
We've been rolling for a while.
We always do this.
I know. This is the one time that we've recorded it.
That's true.
So for anybody listening, Heather and I do this at least pretty regularly.
Yes.
To where it's like, let's get together for like an hour, and you might as well just like block off the day.
Yeah.
Right?
Day's over.
Day's over. Because we talk a lot about this stuff. For those folks out there that have been listening to, our down and dirty discussion about human and organizational performance, what words of encouragement would you give to folks out there that are just kind of scratching the surface of this, maybe haven't started yet? Folks that, places we've been there, where you're living in a really traditional organization that might even be gripped with a bit of fear, and definitely gripped with we've always done it that way, and if we want to get better, we just need to do the thing we've always done harder. That kind of traditional kind of world that I speak to. For those folks that are living in that, or looking at how do I help to bring about this change? I've heard of this stuff and it makes sense to me, and I want to help be part of that change in my organization, or to an organization overall. Like, we're thinking about this. What words of encouragement would you pass along to those folks?
I don't know if it's encouragement or not, but again, the right people find their way here. So it will be encouraging to those. I don't believe that there's an organization out there where you as an individual can't go learn a little bit about something different.
Yeah.
I don't think it exists. So if you are in a space where people aren't willing to hear maybe this different way of thinking, or if you're in a position where you just don't have any authority to make change, I would invite you to just go try the learning piece of what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Go meet with a different group. Even if you can't do that in your same group, department, someone different than yourself that you work with every day, and go ask them about their work, what it takes to get their job done, what challenges they face, what goes well, and take that learning and see how different it is than maybe what you knew before, or what us as an organization knew before. And that can kind of be the building block of showing the difference. Just take a minute to go learn, and no one can tell you can't do that.
Yeah.
No one can take that away. And I think it fuels your own internal fire, but I also think you can use it as some of those ingredients to show other people. Like, hey, we thought this is how this work happened. Not at all.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to gain that traction. I think it'll help. And then building those relationships, please. Build those relationships, even if it's not in an effort for going on this top journey. Having that support system, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to get that support. You're going to go far. It's so beyond worth it. But if you have a desire to learn, if you have a desire to make improvements, you found your community. So I think that's super important.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, last thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So before we totally wrap up, I've got to fix the camera, and we've got to take a picture of this.
Oh, okay.
We're doing this in my dining room, which I took all of that 15 minutes earlier before Heather got here and set it up to look like a real podcast studio. We even put up some massive Jenga blocks in the background. Jenga blocks I specifically bought. I thought they were larger than this, because I paid through the nose for this little stupid Jenga block set.
Uh-oh.
And I'm sitting there, and we're doing this workshop in Vegas, right? So I'm like, I'm going to get some Jenga blocks.
Yeah, of course.
And Heather got to see my Amazon boxes, the few. There's still some sitting on my porch because I just have not gone out there to get them yet. Of all the crap that I'm bringing to Las Vegas. You think I'm like Carrot Top or something.
Yeah.
It's got like a trunk of tricks. And it's going to be a ton of fun. It's not a trunk. It's just Amazon boxes full of wacky things. Right? But so we got to get a picture. But before we do this, since I've got these, so I got my starting points.
So cool.
Funky meeting stars, which these are going to be Heather's when we're done. I'm going to give these to Heather.
So excited.
But I'm going to try to find one.
Uh-oh.
And ask you a wacky question.
This
we got to
is
try
a meeting
them out.
ender, though.
Well, I know that even better. We're gonna get funky at the end. We got weird already, so now we're gonna get funky, right? Random card.
I'm scared.
If you could have a time machine just for work, would you travel to the past or the future?
Oh,
Why?
Man. I think I hear enough stories of the past for a lifetime. I want to go to the future.
Yeah.
I want to go to the future, kind of selfishly, but kind of not. I want to see if we've made an impact, but I also want to see what goofy stuff that's found its way back into what we're doing. You know, iterations. We always repeat history. Mm-hmm. I want to see what goofy new stuff is in the future that is just the same thing that we've done every 10 or 15 years. I want to see it. I have to. I
think I ought to go future too, because I have to think. I know the world's a crazy place nowadays.
It is.
It truly is. But I do kind of subscribe to this belief that we're better off today than what we've ever been. Mm-hmm. Right? We have downturns, clearly. Mm-hmm. we have not good years, clearly. But it's kind of like the market, right? Mm-hmm. If you're zoomed in, it looks like it's bad, mm-hmm. right? It's really bad. But if you zoom out on like market data overall, it's constantly getting better, right? Mm-hmm. It's constantly going up. You might have a crash, mm-hmm. and it might be a shit show for a few years, but we're better off than where we were 50 years, 100 mm-hmm. years, and on. So I would like to see what it looks like too. I would love to be able to see, fingers crossed, that we've left the work world a bit better mm-hmm. than how we found it for the generation that comes after us, and they've done the same, Mm-hmm. and on. Now, you also run the risk of like fast forwarding and then finding yourself in like an apocalyptic wasteland.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. Send me back.
Right. So I've got a couple more.
Okay.
I've got a couple.
Okay.
We'll go rapid fire.
Yes.
And I've strategically avoided the ones because a few of them that I pulled off are like dance competitions and foot races. So,
Please don't do that to me today.
We're wired up here. We do not have wireless mics, so maybe we'll go out front and have a foot race for a separate video. I know Heather's going to win, though. But Avery does have this really cool electric go-kart, so I might cheat.
Cheat.
What's your hidden talent that no one knows about?
Oh no, I don't know that
There's got to be something.
I don't know that I have a hidden talent. I'm not good at rapid fire. That's a weakness, not a talent. Well, I will throw this out there. It's kind of a weakness mixed with a strength, a secret talent. People might not know this about me. I am very anxious and actually have an extreme fear of public speaking, yet it's become my job. And so I kind of black out when I'm talking to people, but somehow stuff comes out. Secret talent.
Secret talent. All right, last one.
Yeah.
This is one of my most favorite ones because we all got one. What is your least favorite or favorite? You can go either direction.
Okay.
Your best office buzzword.
Oh, no. Okay, I've been hearing this one a lot, and please, no one that's listening hate me for this one.
You're going to offend somebody. It's just part of the internet, just to let you know.
I know
I make people mad every day somehow. I don't know how, but
I do too. It's a talent. That's a secret talent.
That's a secret talent. I'm good at pissing off already angry people on the internet.
Yes. This word holistically, I don't know where this has come from. I hear it all the time, and what I find that it actually means is that we haven't done anything.
Yeah.
It's like people don't want to do something because we're doing it holistically.
But Heather, we really need strategic, holistic synergy. If we don't have those things, then how are we going to reach Q4's?
Let's circle back.
Projections. We need to take a look at that in our long-range forecast. And then could you please put that in a three-legged stool in a nice PowerPoint form before we're done? Holistic, strategic synergy. There's three legs.
There you go. Put it in the parking lot.
Put it in the parking lot.
Yeah, I just find that it means that we're not doing anything.
I love the parking lot one. I get in trouble for the parking lot.
I do like parking lots, yeah.
Yeah, but I get in trouble for it because when someone says parking lot, and I'm in a company, I'm like, okay, we're going to park that, but I think you actually need to go to your parking lot. There's a lot of potholes.
Yeah.
We're talking about fixing human behavior. You guys can't fill the potholes in your parking lot. You should probably do that first.
Yeah.
That's just...
Yes. Yeah.
I do love a good parking lot, though.
I do love a good parking lot because, and in
I don't
our
say it though. I say pause a lot of times. Let's press pause on that one.
Oh.
And then let's fast forward to this.
Oh, I'm just always like, can please someone write that down because I'll forget it. Because like
Scribe, where's my scribe?
Thankfully, I do have some very talented folks around me that know that if I'm saying something that sounds good, we've got to write it down because I'm not going to remember it. And if I say, please write it down, they will because we'll revisit it later. But like in our world, we don't like to guide a conversation so much.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you're down a train of thought, it makes sense to stay there. But having somewhere where we can go later is
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one, though. I like all those.
Holistically. So just happen holistically, guys. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to try. It'll happen holistically.
I love those words. And the one that, the phrase that I always pick on because it's maybe the recovering safety professional in me. But I always pick on loss of situational awareness just as a phrase, right? Lack of situational awareness or lost situational awareness. And when I do keynotes, I use this a lot in this last keynote that I've been doing because I bring it up, and I bring it up as part of our kind of having a conversation around our more traditional approaches to improvement. Right? We know how that plays out. But I pick on that particular phrase, and the way that I talk about that, because I think it's true, is I think it is the most perfect corporate phrase. Loss of situational. We love it because it's an easy answer. But more importantly, it means everything and nothing all at once. It's like the perfect corporate phrase.
That's what all the buzzwords are. I mean, everything and nothing. I see that one.
You got to add makes you sound smart.
Yes. Sure. To anyone that has like some additional logic, we know that that's not how that actually works. But yeah, the situational awareness ones, people know if they want to upset me and see me turn, we call it spicy. Turn spicy. Tell me someone lost situational awareness or did not have situational awareness.
Well, I think the best response to that is duh.
Yeah, like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Of course, yeah. Duh. I don't know that. I think we should normalize the duh into our work words, right? I mean, we should. Like when I hear that, duh.
Yeah.
Of course they did.
What's
well,
the
they messed
corporate way
up.
to say that?
Duh.
Duh.
It's a person, right? Of
Yes.
course they did. Of course things it went wrong. Oh, duh.
Duh.
Yeah, of course it did.
I love it.
think duh is kind of like the maybe. There might be a little bit of magic. Maybe even a maybe duh would be like super magic.
Duh. Potentially.
Well, I greatly appreciate you being here, Heather.
Thanks for having me.
This one's really fun because you are an internal consultant. You're not an so. If you do have anything you want to plug, please.
I don't.
please let people know.
No, happy here to help.
Yeah, and then so you're on LinkedIn though, so I'll plug that for you. You should go follow Heather on LinkedIn. She's doing some amazing work, and it's great to get to spend a little bit of time with you. So, thank you for being here.
Of course, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We greatly appreciate all of your support of the Hot Nerd Podcast, the Hot Nerd LLC. If you need a little bit of help bringing human and organizational performance to life, if you would like to take your efforts around learning and improving to the next level, yep, I can help with that. Head over to www.thehotnerd.com or send me an email, thehotnerd@gmail.com. Until next time, bye, everybody. Bye.